Hello guys and welcome back to another video. I'm the Doc11. If you don't know me, I make videos on YouTube and TikTok about Doctor Who, DC, general nerdiness and that kind of thing. So today we're going to be breaking down the trailer for The War Between the Land and the Sea. If you do like these kind of videos and you do want to see more from me, then feel free to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any other videos. But let's get into today's video. Today we're going to be breaking down The War Between the Land and the Sea, the next installment into the Whoniverse, the official 5-part Disney Plus and BBC co-funded gritty drama about a war between people and the Sea Devils, or at least that's what we're kind of being told. So we're going to start by obviously getting into the video. So welcome to the trailer breakdown for The War Between the Land and the Sea. So the official synopsis for this series reads: when a fearsome and ancient species emerges from the ocean, dramatically revealing themselves to humanity, an international crisis is triggered. With the entire population at risk, units step into action as the land and the sea wage war. It just sounds spectacular. I'm so excited to see where this goes and kind of what's to come, what kind of happens. But yeah, really excited. So let's check out the trailer and then let's break it down.
The tides have drawn us together. We could make a difference, you and I. End the conflict between our species before it's too late.
I don't know why you chose me for any of this. You have to stop!
Will you trust me, Barclay?
So that looks epic. Every time I watch that trailer, I just think it gets so more cinematic. I actually saw this trailer for the first time in the cinema right after watching The Reality War, and seeing it on the big screen was absolutely fantastic. I'm really hoping that I'm not sure how they're going to release this series. I kind of think they're going to go down the streaming avenue and it's going to be all 5 episodes dropped at once. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of having to wait and making it last longer. You know, I can't imagine that Doctor Who just suddenly drops 8 episodes of a season one random Saturday and then that's it. It's like, I like every episode of Doctor Who to feel like an event, and the spin-off should be no different. So yeah, let's break down this trailer shot by shot. There is around about 36 shots if you count the last shot of the logo at the end, but 35 actual shots within the trailer of stuff that we can break down. So let's break it down. So the first shot that we see, there isn't much to look at. The music kicks in and it's just the shot of the sea, and there's a little bit of tide, and we get a tiny bit of dialogue that says the tides have drawn us together. The mise-en-scène in this moment is beautiful. I think it's fantastic. It sets the tone instantly. You know this is going to be some kind of drama. It's not a fantasy show, sci-fi show like Doctor Who. It's a dark, gritty drama. And then we see this slightly higher drone angled shot of some kind of military operation. It feels like they're kind of camping out on the beach somewhere. Looks like they're kind of waiting for something. I think it's pretty obvious, obviously, with the seas there. They've set up some kind of encampment by the sea. I don't know, there's something about it that's feeling like some kind of like Utopia Doctor Who episode vibes. I think it's really interesting. We get this idea that there's some kind of military operation going on here, and we're not quite sure what exactly that military operation is. What looks to be within that military operation on the beach, it's a shot of our first lead character, Barclay, played by Barclay. I'm not sure whether they're going Barclay or whether they're going Barclay, like the bank. So yeah, we get to see Barclay for the first time. We see that he's got some binoculars. It looks like he's looking out at the ocean. It looks like maybe they're looking out for something. Maybe they've got some intel and they're trying to kind of see what's going on. I have a feeling this is probably going to be the end of episode 1. It just gives those kind of high stakes vibes. They're waiting for something. The final get to the end of episode 1 and we see what emerges. Then the next shot, we get a little bit of a just kind of a quick shot of this kind of cool looking gun. Looks like it's got a big headlight on it above it. Looks like some kind of really powerful military weapon. The kind of thing I could expect UNIT to be using and have. So that seems really cool. It's definitely suggesting this is a serious drama. This is about guns. It's not about a TV remote looking sonic screwdriver. This is about guns. It's about warfare. Whether that's psychological, whether that's physical warfare, remains to be seen. But it's clear that there's going to be some kind of battle, some kind of action that they're preparing for. Then the next thing, we get a very quick glimpse of what looks to be the new design for the Sea Devils. And we'll get into those a little bit later on when we get the proper look. But we just get this little creepy kind of shot where the Sea Devil pops into frame from the water and it just sets the tone instantly. This is almost, it reminds me of Dracula, where he kind of he wakes up on Whitby Beach, and it's just giving those kind of gritty, kind of horrific vibes, as opposed to dark drama. But yeah, really exciting, looks really cool. We'll get into the actual look of the Sea Devils when we get the better look later on in the trailer. The next shot that we see in the trailer is a group of unit soldiers they all look armed by the looks of things, and Barclay in his long kind of brown coat, and they're heading towards a unit helicopter. I think it's pretty obvious that you can tell this is post Lucky Day episode, judging by like the entire, obviously the show's written by the same writer of Lucky Day, and just that whole tone, that entire kind of unit being this big military operation and then making an entrance, you kind of get the vibes within this trailer. So we get a shot of Barclay and some unit soldiers walking towards this helicopter. The 7th shot that we see in the trailer is actually Barclay getting into that helicopter, and as he's getting into the helicopter, I'm presuming he's heading back to London or something somewhere. We hear then some more dialogue, and this is, "We could make a difference, you and I." And this is the first time that it's kind of suggesting there's a personal relationship there. And from what I know, that they are going down a very Romeo-Juliet style relationship with this show. So I'll be interested to see what angle that takes, and there's a little bit of there's a shot later on that maybe might allude to that a little bit, but yeah, it's pretty obvious. It's some kind of there's something going on here. They want to make a difference, and kind of unite to make a difference. So a very interesting piece of dialogue there. Next thing, we see this really badass shot of a helicopter as it's flying away. Now, obviously, I'm presuming the dialogue that we've been hearing, and it kind of carries on into this shot. So I'm presuming it's the female Sea Devil, which we'll get to kind of looking into a little bit later on. But yeah, I think it's all her talking this dialogue. The next shot we see is the back of Kate Lethbridge Stewart as she enters some kind of other version of UNIT's offices. Now, I believe this is Empress House. This has been mentioned quite a few times across Doctor Who in recent years. Most notably at the end of the reality war, when Mel is telling Ruby that there was that Conrad's changed and that he's not as bad as he always was, and she's on a video chat and she says, yes, this is Mel reporting from Empress House. The background there looks very similar, in a very similar setting to what we're seeing here in this trailer. So I do think that that clip was filmed on location there. And yeah, I think that's just a kind of testament to the fact that UNIT's a lot bigger than UNIT Tower within what we've seen of the show so far. So yeah, it looks like Kate's heading into Empress House. I think a lot of the shots of Kate are from this area. And I think it's quite cool that we've kind of seen this here, and yeah, looks really cool. So then we see what appears to be kind of a high up angle of some kind of summit, some kind of conference. I'm not 100% sure what this is. I'm wondering whether it's Geneva, and it's supposed to be the Geneva conference, because a lot of the times in UNIT, whenever there's something going on, Kate or Mel, they'll say, oh, Geneva aren't going to like that. Geneva are going to be coming down on our heads. I have a feeling that whole kind of Geneva kind of inspiration, that kind of conversation, I'm presuming there must be some kind of almost like a NATO organisation from Geneva that kind of watches over UNIT. and kind of make sure they stay within their realms. And I'm wondering how that's going to play within this, and what they're going to think about it. So yeah, I have a feeling this is some kind of summit between, that there's going to be some kind of decision made here, and we'll talk about that in a few shots time. Then we see Barclay, played by Russell Tovey, walking through that same summit. So presumably he's there to give some kind of speech. He's there to make a point for whatever reason. And at that point, we then hear some dialogue over this that says, "End the conflict between our species." So what we've heard so far is the tides have drawn us together. We can make a difference, you and I, and end the conflict between our species. So now initially in the trailer, you don't actually know that this person talking isn't human. And now we're kind of thinking, okay, there's some kind of multi-species thing going on here. What exactly is this? So it's genuinely giving you that hook. It's another drop of that kind of, another hook within the trailer to kind of pull you in. So yeah, that's quite interesting. The next shot in the trailer is of Kate looking really worried. I'm wondering if maybe she's watching this kind of conference from Emperor's House, and she's just seen that something devastating's happened. They've just made a decision that they're gonna nuke the oceans or something that's gonna basically cause this war. Whatever decision is being made at this summit is gonna be the inciting incident that is gonna be cause of the war. You know, it might just be a little bit of there's a bit of friction at first between the Sea Devils because of pollution maybe, or something's going on, and then the people that like to make decisions decide that they've got heavy armour, they've got a lot of weapons, and they want to come down with an iron fist and say, no, we're going to defend our land, you stay in your water and stay in your place. In fact, they might even want to take over the waters as well. Maybe there's some kind of oil down there and they want to make money on it. Maybe that's going to be the kind of the capitalism talk going on within the political subtext of the series. But whatever this decision is, Kate doesn't look too happy about it. Then we see Barclay actually getting ready to give that speech. So it looks as though, obviously we've already, a couple of shots before, we saw Barclay enter. Now it looks like he's standing up, he's centre of the room, he's ready to make a speech. And we hear the dialogue before it's too late. So it's hinting that something is going to come, and I think this is what's kind of making me believe this moment in the trailer, whatever is decided at this moment, whether it's something that the Russell Tovey's character Barclay does, whether it's something that one of the other characters do, something's going to happen in this summit, in this conference, whatever happens, that is going to decide the fate of the Sea Devils, and it's going to be the inciting incident between the war between the land and the sea. Now we get a very quick closer up shot, and it's our first shot of the character that I believe is called Salt, that's actually been making this speech and doing kind of talking over the dialogue, has been doing the dialogue for the trailer so far, and has been having that kind of monologue there. This is Salt. She is played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who played Martha Jones's sister in Series 3 of Doctor Who. To be honest, they're not going to explain why they've reused the same actor. In all honesty, you don't need to. She's covered in prosthetics. I didn't even realise it was her. I knew the name from the show, but I didn't actually realise who she played previously until I actually did a bit of research and realised it. What it doesn't by any means take you out of the episode. What does take you out is Alonso being Barclay. Maybe it's going to turn out Barclay's some kind of space baby, and Alonso's one of his ancestors somewhere down the line. To be honest, that's probably the route they'll go down. I mean, Freema Agyeman that played Martha was previously in a few episodes earlier than being introduced as companion, and that turned out to be Martha's cousin. I'm sure they'll find some kind of cool way of just being like, yeah, we'll acknowledge Russell Tovey's character Barclay is an earlier, because you have to realise we don't meet Alonso until the far future, so this must be the great granddad of Alonso. I imagine it's going to be something like that. It's going to be a quick reference, but to be honest, they might not even address it, because unless the Doctor shows up, there's going to be no reason to, because the Doctor's never seen this face before. But if Russell Tovey somehow becomes the Doctor, then it's because he's met Alonso and Barclay. Who knows? I say he, the Doctor's apparently a she now, again. The Doctor, they. Anyway, moving on to the next shot of the trailer. So then we get another shot that looks to be, from, I think it's from behind, and we've got kind of Barclay being led out of the building by unit soldiers, presumably being his security. I'm guessing something's happened in this conference and they're not happy about it. And there's a lot of clues in the trailer to kind of make that assumption quite closely, I think. But yeah, there's a lot that kind of seems to be going down. He's being led, presumably back to a unit van, to be taken back to Unit Tower, and obviously the story will unfold from there. Then we get a slightly side shot angle of Barclay kind of leaving the conference, and this is where we hear the first dialogue from Barclay, where he says, "I don't know why you chose me." It's interesting, he's got quite a neutral tone, he seems very confused, he's not quite sure what's going on. So the next shot that we see is a shot of Shirley, who we've obviously seen throughout the past couple of seasons of Doctor Who. Does anyone know what happened to Lenny Rush's character? Gibbons, I think his character was. What happened to him? Because he was in season 1 and then just seems to have disappeared, or he was in the 60th and then seems to have disappeared. I feel like they just forgot about him. At least when Mel's not there or Shirley wasn't there, they gave a reason. They were like, oh yeah, Mel's in Geneva, or she's investigating something. Where's Lenny? Maybe he's building some tech or something. I'm not quite sure what really happened, really. But where is Gibbons? Justice for Gibbons. This is where I do some research after and find out it's not called Gibbons. Anyway, so we see Shirley. She's looking worried, possibly at the same decision Kate was earlier on. I think this is the moment when they realise that war is coming. Something's happened. Maybe there's been an invasion. They're reacting to something. The next scene that we see is Russell Tovey's character, Barclay, in some sort of underwater meeting place, and I think it's pretty obvious that obviously with Salt there, and he finishes his dialogue line of "for any of this." So obviously he said, "I don't know why you chose me for any of this," and I'm presuming that entire dialogue is picked from that line, and it's just the way they've cut the trailer together. He doesn't seem to kind of know why he's being picked. That being said, the next shot is actually Salt's reaction to that line. And she has a look of almost as if she's surprised why he doesn't know he's been chosen. Like he should know why he was chosen. Possibly that's a hint at maybe their relationship throughout the series. I do think there's going to be this romantic connection between Barclay and Sol, and I think that's going to be the Romeo and Juliet element of the series. I'm excited. I'm really interested to see where it goes, regardless of it being multi-species. I think it's as long as they deliver it right and it's a good, groundbreaking, gritty drama, I don't see it going wrong. It is definitely giving me Children of Earth vibes, though, the Torchwood. It's seeming like it's pitched to an older, general, wider audience, but then Russell has commented saying that it would be fine for a 12-year-old to watch. So I'm not quite sure. I'm presuming that it's probably not gory and it's probably not too explicit, but I imagine there will be some tones in there that are a little bit more adult. Probably more of a 12A kind of series situation, which is great because there are some great films that are 12As in the UK, which I think is a PG-13 rating in America. But you let me know in the comments if that's slightly different, because I've known R rated in America has been 15s over here, so I guess the UK just a lot of our things are chosen by members of the BBFC, so we choose how we want to rate it, and that seems to change year on year based on what we think is appropriate for certain audiences to see. As we become kind of more open-minded and obviously more accepting of seeing things in film and TV and the wider media. Then we see a shot of some unit soldiers jumping into action and they're aiming their guns, looking a little bit trigger happy. Nothing really too much into that. They look like they're aiming at, maybe they've seen something, maybe some kind of sea devil or something's risen and they're aiming at that. Then we see a shot of this female unit soldier and she looks to be looking over. I think this is some kind of bridge. I think from filming images, I think this might be a moment that the sea devil jumps into the water and possibly Barclay dives in after her. And this is that female soldier's reaction to, hang on a minute, is he sleeping with the enemy, literally? Or what's kind of going on? So yeah, she seems a little bit intriguing. She seems to have quite a prominent feature within the series from the looks of things and within the trailer. So I'm interested to see if she's going to become a bit of a villainous character in terms of trying to be very against this idea of Barclay and Salt and their kind of relationship and kind of the way that's going to form. So I think that'd be quite interesting to see the way that plays out. The next shot that we see is another shot of Barclay, and it almost looks like he's looking back, being dragged out of that same conference that we saw earlier. So I'm presuming this shot is actually from just before the shots where we saw him leaving the building with security and the unit soldiers. I'm presuming it's before that. So whatever happened in that room, whatever happens in that room is some kind of inciting incident, and it is going to be kicking off this entire war. I'm convinced of that from reading into this trailer a little bit more. Then we see this really quick shot of Salt again, where she looks like she's not too pleased. Maybe she's just been given some bad news. I have a feeling that Russell Tovey's character Barclay is going to be some kind of interim character that's going to be almost the voice of of humans to the Sea Devils, and I think he's going to be that kind of character. He's going to be the middleman and almost like the translator for them. The next shot seems to suggest where Kate gets a little bit more involved. She walks into that conference room, possibly after it's all happened. Something's happened outside. Everything started kicking off, and she's shouting at whoever we're not seeing. They're gatekeeping someone. They're keeping something a secret. She's shouting, "You have to stop." Which is just that badass Kate that we saw in Lucky Day, which I really want to see more of. And Lucky Day felt like a backdoor pilot to this entire series, and I just think it works so well. I think we've been crying for years to see a spin-off for UNIT, and I think it just works brilliantly, and I'm so excited to see it. And what's a shame is that I have a feeling this is going to be a limited series, so there isn't going to be a second series. But what would be cool is this is the war between the land and the sea. So maybe they could have another spin-off after this called the war between the Earth and Mars, and it could be UNIT going to war against Ice Warriors. Something like that. Maybe I should pitch that to Russell. Anyway, so I don't know. I just think it's a way that they could keep the same title of it being the war between, but it's always UNIT and Earth in a war against another thing, and it kind of gives them that chance to expand on it. But each series could have a different tone. Each series would be its own event and its own thing. You know, if you think about the Stranger Things series, for example, you know, each Stranger Things, it's not Stranger Things season 1, it's Stranger Things 1, 2, 3, 4, and obviously the new one is going to be Stranger Things 5. That's the way it's marketed. Not seasons. It's marketed as it's almost like a 5th film. So it's interesting to see where they're going to take this. So I definitely think they could do more spin-offs, but how they do it is obviously up to them, and obviously they'll decide that hopefully going forward. I really hope we do get to see more of these characters and another form of a spin-off in some way. And I feel like this series is exactly what Praxeus should have been. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
So, Editor Kane here, so I just thought I'd drop this little bit in. As I was talking about there, the idea of these spin-offs and it kind of continuing, it's kind of been a separate story, but always kind of the war between. I just thought it was worth noting that they have kind of set everything up ready for that kind of future. So the actual social media accounts for the war between the land and the sea, again, not sponsored, but are actually only called the war between TV, or just the war between. The kind of images they're using, everything, the way they're marking it, as if the show's called the war between. So it's definitely set up that in the future they could have a second series that's like the war between X and X. So I just thought I'd mention that a little bit there as well.
Which leads us really nicely on to the next shot, which is Barclay being blown in the wind. And you can see from the shot that there's a lot of like litter around. There's a lot of there's a lot of litter, there's a lot of kind of rubbish on the floor. So I'm presuming this is the Sea Devils firing the litter out of I know from filming pictures there was a lot of litter left on the streets. So it sounds like the Sea Devils are taking the litter from the oceans and the seas and they're putting it onto land. And that might be one of the things that then starts this war, and that's kind of their first attack, and it'll slowly build to becoming more of a ground invasion. And a sea invasion, which I think we get an idea of later on. And yeah, it definitely starts building up. It's starting to ramp towards this whole idea that there's a war coming. The next shot that we see is the soldiers on a bridge. It's a high shot. They're all lined up and they look to be aiming at someone. I knew from filming pictures that this was Sol or someone that looks like Sol. I'm pretty sure it is, because the next shot is Sol reacting to the soldiers surrounding her. I think the only way out is for her to dive into the water, and I'm pretty sure from the filming pictures that I saw at the time, she does dive into the water, and yeah, I think it's interesting. It's the only way out, and it's the only way she's gonna survive this situation. She's surrounded by, you know, she's clearly come to land. I have a feeling she's probably come to look for Barclay. I'm hoping this isn't a moment where she gets shot, because it might explain something that happens a little bit later in the trailer. But yeah, so we see Salt. She's surrounded by these soldiers, and she's no way out. So presumably she's probably just going to go straight away and jump into the water, and that's the way she'll find her way out. Next we see another shot of Barclay. He looks to be suited up in some kind of water breathing apparatus, some kind of diving suit. And he, as if he's underwater. It definitely looks like he's meeting her in some kind of underwater kind of temple or something. It's given me, I don't know, it feels like going to kind of like the Little Mermaid's Atlantis or something like that. Aquaman vibes is kind of what I'm getting. Just seeing these underwater scenes. It'd be interesting to see if there is any underwater scenes where they use the same technology that the Aquaman film used with the hair and things like that. So that'd be interesting to see. They probably don't have the budget for all like that, to be honest, and it'll just be, there'll be some kind of explanation for why it doesn't look like water. Anyway, we move on to seeing we obviously see Barclay. He's got his kind of diving gear on, and he's kind of all suited up underwater, looking at Salt. Presumably he's going to see her, and we hear this dialogue of, "Will you trust me, Barclay?" So we know this is Salt again. Clearly there's a conversation going on between Salt and Barclay at this kind of, I think all the dialogue in this trailer is of Salt and Barclay having a conversation, apart from the one line from Kate where she screams, "You have to stop." It seems like this might even be one of their moments where they're kind of having a bit of a heart-to-heart, and we're starting to see the relationship between Barclay and Salt start to form. So I think that's really exciting. I think it's starting to hint at the kind of what's to come with their relationship. Then the next shot is a reverse of this shot where we actually see Barclay, where she's almost looking for Barclay's answer of, "Will you trust me?" And she's waiting for him to say yes, and you can see it in her face. And I kind of like that they've given her a very, I'm not disappointed they've changed the way the Sea Devils look if it makes them more human and it allows you to emotionally connect. And I think this moment really demonstrates that, because you can really tell in this trailer that there is a deeper connection to Salt, and there is a human element to her that kind of makes it easier as an audience for you to believe is real and understand. You know, the big chunky classic Sea Devils, which, don't get me wrong, you know, they're a bit gimmicky, as are most classic Doctor Who villains. I mean, the Daleks are basically just pepper pots. But there is obviously that element that I think now that we're going into it, you know, we've got that high-end budget, you want to see it, you want it to feel real. And it won't, you know, although they're putting the money into it, you don't want it to feel like bubble wrap monsters. You want it to feel real, and that's why I think that it's kind of a good thing that they have changed the Sea Devils. And we'll get into their design towards the back end of the trailer and what we actually think of that, but yeah. Then we see this kind of shutter door open, and we see kind of 3 or 4 members of UNIT. One of them is very recognisable, and I'm sure he's been in UNIT before. I'm sure he's been in Doctor Who a long time before. He's a very recognisable actor, and I'm presuming he's playing the same character if he has played one before. But we see these 3 people from UNIT as the shutter door rises in the next shot. And they've got these orange, what look to be UNIT diving suits on. Now, I'm presuming this is the same version that Barclay will have, or maybe he'll have a slightly different colour. I don't think it's unsafe to assume that this orange look is definitely a nod to the Doctor's orange diving suit. And if the Doctor started getting to wear one like this after this, I think it'd be acceptable. I think we've had the old one, the old orange one, for long enough now. We could change it up a little bit, but still keep that orange look and keep it to that kind of style. That being said, obviously, although we didn't get to see Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor wearing the orange diving suit, we did get to see him wearing a blue sort of diving suit in a way. So at least we got a Doctor in a diving suit, so maybe we could still get an action figure of that. But I do like this kind of ongoing, reoccurring thing of the different Doctors wearing the diving suit. I think that's really cool, and it just adds this element of continuity to it. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think these orange spacesuits, the orange jumpsuit diving suits look quite cool, and I think they look like some kind of uniform and organisation like UNIT would use to dive underground. I'm presuming at this point they're going down, they're going to investigate whatever this kind of underwater thing going on is. Maybe they've had a spike in radiation or something's happened, and now they're diving down to try and understand what's going on. Then we see a shot of Barclay walking up some kind of mountain. It looks quite sweaty, quite out of breath. It does look like the same place where they filmed the opening to 73 Yards, in all honesty, but it seems like it's some kind of coast. I'm wondering if this is going to be some kind of area that's maybe a reference to the reality world, where there was on about things had changed in this reality, and they mentioned that the border between I can't remember, I think they said Sweden and Switzerland, or the border between somewhere had moved. I think that might play into this, and maybe this is that border. Maybe the sea's got more condensed, and maybe that's what's upsetting the Sea Devils. Who knows? So yeah, we see him looking a little bit exhausted. Some unit soldiers behind him as he's going up this hill, and they're obviously aiming to go on some kind of mission. They're obviously trying to reach somewhere. Not sure what they're trying to reach, but they're obviously trying to reach something. Those unit soldiers, again, that recognisable one is behind him here, and they appear to be kind of going on some kind of mission. Then we finally get the 30-second shot of the trailer. We finally get to see a better look at this Sea Devil. Now, presumably this shot is moments after the kind of close-up that we got earlier on in the trailer. But yeah, we finally see the Sea Devil. They've got some kind of staff. I don't know if this is going to be what all the new Sea Devils look like, or if this is going to be what they... I'm presuming the reality changes are going to... the reality war changes with reality shifting one tiny degree is what's going to explain these changes, to be honest with you. But yeah, and why the Sea Devils look different. But honestly, yeah, I really love this design. I think it's creepy. I think it's realistic. It makes you... It doesn't seem like a gimmicky show. You could believe this as... You know, if you look at Stranger Things and you look at characters like Vecna and the Mind Flayer, they're not gimmicky. They are genuinely terrifying creatures. The Demogorgons are genuinely terrifying creatures. So it makes sense that for the war between the land and the sea, they would change it and they'd do something different to genuinely create that fear. You know, as much as I dislike the Omega design from the reality war, it genuinely did feel creepy to me. So yeah, I do like this new design. I think they look so much more realistic, and it does give them that human feel, and it does allow you to connect to them. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how the show perceives them, as to whether they're the victims or whether they're the kind of the war ragers, because they've just woken up and they've revealed themselves to humanity, but have they done it because humans have done something to them? And that might explain the pollution, and it might be that. Then we get to see Barclay hugging someone. He looks quite upset. He looks quite distraught. I have a feeling that at this point he's just had some bad news. Maybe this him upset because they've made that decision at the conference earlier on. Maybe something's happened to Salt. I mean, if this is going to go down a Romeo and Juliet line, it's only going to end one way, and it might explain why there won't be a second series. Are Barclay and Salt going to make it out of this series alive? That's the real question. Will it be Salt first because Unit are trigger happy, and she becomes a victim of the war, or is this just because Barclay's formed an attachment and is upset because the unit overheads at Geneva have decided that we need to wage war on the Sea Devils because they're infecting our land and our species. Quite curious to know why he's crying. Maybe he's upset, maybe someone has died, maybe it is a little bit less deep than that, and he's just upset because the decision he wanted them to go against, because I feel like he's become a spokesperson for the Sea Devils to humanity. So I feel like he's almost like... I feel like his role within Unit is going to be some kind of diplomat. I feel like he's going to be some kind of like species diplomat, because you know, if you think about the way politics works, you know, you're going to have someone from each country that goes to other countries as a diplomat and says, look, right, we're speaking on behalf of the United Kingdom to America, for example, rather than sending the actual leader. So this is a representative of humans that is the diplomat to the Sea Devils and is kind of going between them. But the overheads are the ones that ultimately make the decisions, and that decision might be that war has to come. So then we get a high up shot of some kind of eggs. I'm presuming these are going to be some kind of Sea Devil eggs, and maybe this is the inciting incident. Maybe it's not whatever happens in that conference. Maybe this happens later on, but maybe this inciting incident is that they go down and dive below in their orange dive suits that we saw earlier on, and they recover these eggs, and we have the actual story isn't a Romeo and Juliet story between Barclay and Salt, but it's actually the mother, Salt, trying to reclaim her children. Maybe it's these stolen eggs is what reawakens them and why they're so determined, and they need that diplomat like Barclay to kind of get involved and intervene a little bit. But yeah, this whole shot gives me vibes of like the Alien films. I think, yeah, the tone is so set in this trailer. It looks fantastic. Then we see shot 35 of the trailer, which is it seems to be Barclay talking to Salt in. Weirdly, it doesn't look like they're underground now. It looks like, I'm wondering if at some point in this series the Sea Devils do take over the world, or they do take over England and the country, and once they've taken over, they kind of get themselves a throne within UNIT. Or maybe they're even being held in UNIT as maybe Salt's being captured by UNIT and she's being captured there. I'd be interested to know, because it does look like an interior building somewhere that maybe within Empress House, that obviously we hear get mentioned, that I think is where Kate's being based. But yeah, Barclay looks like he's a little bit down in the shot. It looks like he's not prepared to deliver some news to her, and I think the close-up shots that we saw of Salt earlier on in the trailer might be her reaction to whatever Barclay's about to tell her in this. And then yeah, it fades to black, and then we get the last shot, which is the logo coming up, the war between the land and the sea, and the sea and the tide that we saw kind of from the beginning of the trailer. So it's a nice bookend to the trailer. So yeah, let's talk about our thoughts and our feelings. I think overall I'm really excited, not just seeing the trailer in cinemas, but the more I watch it, the more I read into it, the more I think actually this is a really exciting spin-off. This is something that we need from the Whoniverse. Especially because Doctor Who's always been gimmicky, it's always been silly. It needs to capture another audience, and I think this will cater to a wider general audience. Now it depends when it releases as to how well this will do. If we don't have a Christmas special of Doctor Who this year, which seems unlikely unless they can somehow get one episode out within a few months, which back in the day used to be quite easy. You know, they could film in September a 45-minute episode that'd air on, or an hour episode that'd air on Christmas Day. Now it seems to take them about 2 years to film 8 episodes. I mean, it took them 2 years to film the 60th, plus 2 seasons of Doctor Who. And in that time, we still didn't get a renewal for season 3 as of the recording of this video. But yeah, very interesting, very excited, very looking forward to it. I have to say the music in this trailer, the composer is a composer called Lorne Balfe. He's known for composing films like Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. He did Mission Impossible Fallout. He did Six Underground. He's been a composer for some major Hollywood films and Netflix films, and I think it's a sign to the kind of money that's been put into this series, really, that they've managed to get a composer. This isn't someone like Murray Gold that's done a lot of Doctor Who and is known within the Whoniverse. This is a major composer that's scoring this drama. That's everything for today, guys. If you have enjoyed this video, then feel free to obviously hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, so you don't miss any other videos, and of course hit that like button just to show your appreciation, and yeah, drop your comments down below and let me know what your thoughts are on the war between the land and the sea. Let me know what you thought about the trailer. Do you think there's any theories that we could be throwing about there? This is the time for doing it. Let's get theorizing about the war between the land and the sea, and see where we can take it. But I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye for now, guys. Goodbye.